If you're watching this video, it's because you too carry that silent weight, an emptiness that no one else can see, but that consumes you from within. That feeling of being lost in your own life, of waking up each day without the desire to face the world, of sensing that something deep inside you has broken and you no longer know how to repair it. You are not alone. Thousands of people right now feel exactly what you're feeling. That exhaustion that sleep can't cure, that nameless sadness that follows you like a shadow, that loss of meaning that makes everything seem empty and purposeless. Today we're going to discover together what's really happening in your soul, why you feel this way, and how you can begin to heal from within. Before we continue, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel if these topics resonate with you. Here you'll find a safe space to explore the depths of the human soul, and I believe this content can accompany you on your journey of transformation. Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, who dedicated his life to studying the depths of the human soul, described something he called the dark night of the soul. Jung observed that many people experience periods where they feel as if they're dying inside, where life loses all its meaning and color. But what Jung discovered is that these moments are not illnesses of the soul, but natural processes of profound transformation. What you're experiencing isn't just physical tiredness, it's something much deeper. Existential exhaustion, the fatigue of a soul that has carried for years expectations that weren't its own, dreams that didn't spring from its heart, a life that has been lived for others instead of for itself. This exhaustion manifests in very specific ways. Maybe you wake up in the early hours with a feeling of emptiness in your chest, as if something important has been lost forever. Perhaps things that once excited you now seem insignificant. Maybe you cry for no apparent reason, or feel like you're watching your life from the outside, as if you were a spectator of your own existence. And here's the most confusing part of all. This can be happening to you even if externally your life seems successful. You might have the job you should want, the relationships you should value, the achievements that should make you happy. But inside, you feel like you're acting in a play you no longer want to perform. The loss of purpose you feel isn't coincidental. For years, many of us have built our lives on foundations that weren't really ours. We've lived seeking our parents' approval, trying to fit into social expectations, chasing success as the outside world defines it. We've built an identity based on what we do, what we have, how others see us. But there comes a moment in life when these superficial purposes lose their power. It's as if the soul awakens from a deep sleep and realizes it has been living someone else's life. And when those external motivators fade, what remains is emptiness. An emptiness that isn't negative, but necessary. It's the space that's created when we let go of the false to make room for the authentic. That's why you withdraw. That's why you feel the need to retreat from the world, from superficial conversations, from activities that once filled your time, but now seem empty. Your soul is asking for silence, asking for space to process this profound transformation that's occurring within you. This voluntary isolation isn't antisocial or problematic, it's wise. Your internal system knows you need to step away from external noise to hear your inner voice. It's as if your soul has put up a sign that says, "Under renovation, please excuse the disruption." The solitude you seek in this moment isn't the destructive solitude that comes from rejection or abandonment. It's restorative solitude, the kind that allows you to reconnect with yourself without interference from the outside world. It's in this solitude where you can begin to distinguish between your authentic voice and all the borrowed voices you've been following for years. But there's something deeper happening here. What you're experiencing is a process of internal grief. You're not only mourning things you've lost externally, but all the versions of yourself that are dying. You're grieving dreams that no longer belong to you, beliefs that no longer hold up your world, the person you thought you were and can no longer continue being. This grief is sacred. You're burying parts of your identity that no longer serve your growth. You're releasing attachments that kept you small, and though it's painful, it's necessary. As the saying goes, only when we let go of what we are can we become what we might be. I'd like to pause here to ask you something. Do you identify with any of these experiences I've described? Have you felt that deep exhaustion, that emptiness, that need to withdraw from the world? If so, leave me a comment sharing your experience. Sometimes, simply putting into words what we feel can be the first step toward healing. Jung also spoke of spiritual awakening as a process that often begins with what he called the encounter with the shadow. This means facing the parts of ourselves we've denied or suppressed. And this encounter, though necessary for our growth, is inherently painful. Spiritual awakening isn't like it's portrayed on social media or in superficial self-help books. It's not all light and love from day one. It's more like the process of a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. For the butterfly to be born, the caterpillar must die completely. It must dissolve entirely into a cellular soup before it can rebuild itself into a completely new form. You're in that dissolution phase. You're dying to your old way of being in order to be reborn into a more authentic version of yourself. That's why it hurts so much. That's why you feel like you're losing everything you thought you were. Because you effectively are losing it, but you're not losing it forever. You're transforming it. Many people in this process feel what mystics have described for centuries: homesickness. It's that deep feeling that you don't completely belong to this world, that there's another place where your soul feels at peace. It's not that you want to die, but that you long for a state of being where you can exist without the constant friction you feel now. This spiritual nostalgia is real and valid. It's your soul's cellular memory remembering its divine origin, its connection to something greater than this material existence. And while it can make you feel like a stranger in your own life, it's also a compass guiding you toward your true inner home. It's important to distinguish here between what is a natural spiritual process and what might be clinical depression requiring professional attention. The symptoms can seem similar: deep sadness, loss of interest, isolation, changes in sleep and appetite. If you feel you can't function at all, if you have thoughts of harming yourself, it's crucial that you seek professional help. However, many times what we diagnose as depression is actually a spiritual existential crisis. The difference is that in the spiritual process, though there's pain, there's also an underlying sense that something important is being born. There are moments of clarity, connection, hope that appear between the waves of sadness. If you want to accompany this channel on more explorations like this, I invite you again to subscribe. Together we can navigate these deep territories of the human soul with respect and wisdom. Now then, how do you begin to heal? How do you navigate this process without getting lost in it forever? The first step is radical acceptance of what you're experiencing. Stop resisting this process. Stop judging yourself for feeling what you feel. Your soul is doing exactly what it needs to do to evolve. Like a river finding its natural course, your transformation process has its own wisdom and its own timing. Accept that you're not broken. Accept that there's nothing to fix but everything to transform. Speak to yourself with the same compassion you would show a child going through something difficult. Tell yourself, it's okay to feel this. It's okay not to have all the answers right now. I'm in a sacred process of transformation. The second crucial element is silence and inner listening. In a culture that's constantly bombarding you with stimuli, noise, and distractions, your soul is crying out for silence. You need moments where you can simply be, without doing, without producing, without consuming information. Dedicate time each day to intentional silence. It can be meditation, it can be prayer, it can be simply sitting in stillness observing your breath. In this silence is where you'll begin to hear the gentle voice of your soul, the one that's been trying to communicate with you beneath all the external noise. Connection with nature is pure medicine for the weary soul. Your body and spirit are made of the same elements as trees, stones, water, and wind. When you connect with nature, you're remembering you're belonging to something greater than your personal problems. Go for walks without a fixed destination. Sit under a tree and observe how its roots extend deep into the earth, while its branches reach toward the sky. This is what you're learning to do. Root yourself in your authenticity while opening to higher possibilities. It's also fundamental that you cleanse toxic stimuli from your life. Social media that makes you compare yourself to others, news that feeds your anxiety, superficial conversations that drain your energy, television programs that disconnect you from yourself. Your nervous system needs a break from all this overstimulation. Create gentle self-care routines that nourish your soul, not just your body. Listen to music that moves something deep within you. Read books that feed your spirit. Write in a journal, not to analyze but to discharge. Draw, paint, create something with your hands. These activities aren't luxuries, they're medicines for your recovering soul. And here comes something crucial. Learn to trust God's timing, the divine timing of your process. Your soul doesn't operate according to worldly schedules. You can't rush your transformation like it's a work project. This is spiritual alchemy, and alchemy requires time, patience, and faith. As Scripture says in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 and 29, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." This verse reminds us that true rest isn't just physical but for the soul. Trust that there's a higher wisdom orchestrating your process. Trust that each difficult day is bringing you closer to a more authentic version of yourself. Trust that the emptiness you feel isn't the end of your story, but the space where something new and beautiful is gestating. What many don't tell you about this process is that there's a hidden gift waiting for you on the other side. When you traverse this dark night of the soul and emerge transformed, you don't just recover your vitality, you emerge with a freedom you've never experienced before. You free yourself from the compulsive need for external approval. You free yourself from fear of others' judgment. You free yourself from having to fit into molds that were never made for your soul. You develop what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold tension between opposites until a third option emerges, a higher synthesis. You begin to live from your authentic center instead of from peripheral expectations. You develop deep compassion for human suffering because you've walked through the valley of shadows and emerged with wisdom. You become someone who can hold space for others going through their own transformation. Your relationship with the world changes fundamentally. You no longer need external circumstances to give you happiness because you found an internal source of peace that's independent of what happens outside. You live with what Buddhists call compassionate detachment. You love deeply but don't cling desperately. This doesn't mean you become indifferent or cold. On the contrary, you become more capable of genuinely loving because you no longer love from need, but from abundance. You no longer seek in others what you lack, but give from your fullness. You emerge with your true spiritual identity. You no longer define yourself by your job, marital status, achievements, or failures. You know yourself as an eternal soul having a temporary human experience, and from that perspective, everything becomes lighter, more manageable, more meaningful. Thousands of people have gone through this process before you. In their own words, some have described this transformation as being reborn, as awakening from a dream I didn't know I was dreaming, as finally finding the way home. One person wrote, "I thought I was going crazy, but now I realize I was becoming sane for the first time in my life." Another shared, "The emptiness I felt wasn't the absence of something. It was the space my soul was creating for something much greater." These testimonies remind us that you're not alone on this journey. Thousands of brave souls have walked this path before you and have emerged transformed. Your process is unique, but you're not isolated. You're part of an invisible community of seekers who are awakening to their true nature. But here's where many get stuck. They feel all this emptiness, recognize they're in a transformation process, but don't know how to take the next step. They wonder, what now? How do I build an authentic life when I don't even know who I really am? The answer isn't in your mind. Your mind has been programmed by years of social, family, and cultural conditioning. The answer is in your body, in your intuition, in those subtle sensations you've learned to ignore because the world taught you that only logic matters. Begin to pay attention to what your body tells you in different situations. When you're with certain people, do you feel expansive or contracted? When you perform certain activities, do you feel energy or exhaustion? When you think about certain paths for your life, do you feel openness or resistance in your chest? Your body is wiser than your mind because it can't lie. It can't pretend that something is good for you when it isn't. Your body is your internal compass toward authenticity. Learn to consult it before making important decisions. It's also fundamental that you understand your awakening process doesn't have a fixed timeline. It's not like a university course where you have to complete certain requirements in a determined time. It's more like the growth of a tree. It happens in seasons, with periods of visible growth and periods of invisible growth underground. There will be days when you feel you're progressing, where everything seems to make sense, and you feel hopeful about your future. And there will be other days when you feel you've regressed, where sadness returns with force and you doubt everything you've learned. Both types of days are necessary. Difficult days aren't evidence that you're failing. They're evidence that you're processing deeper layers of your transformation. It's like peeling an onion. Each layer you remove might make you cry, but it brings you closer to the pure center. During this process, you might lose some relationships. People you've known for years might start to feel like strangers. This isn't because you've become antisocial or superior. It's because you're vibrating at a different frequency, and not all relationships can adapt to your new frequency. Don't cling to relationships that no longer nourish your soul just out of loyalty to the past or fear of loneliness. Sometimes the greatest show of love towards someone is allowing the relationship to transform or even end, especially if that relationship is preventing you from growing. At the same time, you'll begin to attract new people into your life. People who resonate with who you're becoming, not with who you used to be. These new connections will be deeper, more authentic, more nourishing for your soul. But don't desperately seek these new relationships. When you're in your transformation process, it's important that you learn to be complete by yourself first. The most beautiful relationships are born when two complete people choose to share their lives, not when two halves seek to complete each other. Your relationship with yourself is the foundation of all other relationships in your life. If you can't be at peace with yourself in solitude, you also won't be able to be at peace with others in company. Use this time of introspection to develop a deep and loving friendship with yourself. Talk to yourself as you would talk to your best friend. Forgive yourself for past mistakes with the same compassion you would show towards someone you love. Celebrate your small advances with the same joy you would celebrate someone important's achievements. As you progress in this process, you'll also begin to notice changes in how you perceive time. Before, perhaps you lived constantly worried about the future or ruminating about the past. Now you'll start to experience moments of pure presence, where you're completely here, completely now. These moments of presence are gifts from your awakened soul. They're windows into a higher state of consciousness where you don't need anything special to happen to feel at peace. Simply being alive, simply breathing, simply existing is enough to feel deep gratitude. Gratitude becomes your natural state, not because your life is perfect, but because you've developed the capacity to see beauty and meaning even in the midst of difficulty. You can be grateful for your pain because it's teaching you compassion. You can be grateful for your confusion because it's teaching you humility. You'll also begin to experience what many mystics have described as meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. You find exactly the book you need to read at the perfect moment. You run into the right person when you most need that conversation. You receive signs from the universe that confirm you're on the right path. These synchronicities aren't coincidences. They're evidence that you're aligning with life's natural flow. When you stop swimming against your soul's current and start flowing with it, life begins to conspire in your favor in mysterious and beautiful ways. But be careful not to romanticize this process too much. Spiritual awakening isn't a constantly euphoric experience. It's more like learning to surf. There are moments of pure joy when you're in perfect harmony with the wave, and there are moments where the wave knocks you down and you have to get back on the board. The difference is that now you have tools to navigate the difficult waves. You have meditation, you have connection with nature, you have reflective writing, you have prayer or whatever spiritual practice resonates with you. You have a toolbox for the soul, and something very important. You don't have to have everything figured out to start helping others. In fact, it's through sharing your process, with all its imperfection and vulnerability, that you can be of greatest service. Your wound healed with love becomes your gift to the world. Many people who have gone through this process discover that their life purpose is connected to helping others who are going through their own dark night of the soul. They become healers, counselors, artists, writers, spiritual teachers, not because they graduated from a special school, but because they've walked through fire and emerged with wisdom. Your pain wasn't in vain. Your confusion wasn't wasted time. Your isolation wasn't antisocial. Everything was part of your initiation into a deeper way of living. Everything was part of your training to become a beacon of light for others navigating darkness. The world needs more people who have done this inner work. It needs more people who can hold space for pain without trying to fix it immediately. It needs more people who can see beauty in vulnerability and strength in sensitivity. Your sensitivity, which perhaps the world taught you to see as a weakness, is actually your superpower. It allows you to feel the underground currents of human experience that others overlook. It allows you to connect with people at a level that goes beyond the surface. Don't try to harden yourself to fit into a world that prioritizes insensitivity. The world needs your open heart, your deep empathy, your ability to see beyond the masks people wear to protect themselves. This emptiness you feel isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your true awakening. It's the space that's created when you let go of the false to make room for the true. It's the sacred pause between who you were and who you're destined to be. Your soul is asking for something greater than the superficial pleasures and temporary distractions the world offers. It's asking for authentic purpose, genuine connection, deep meaning. And though the process of finding these things can be painful, on the other side awaits a life richer and more meaningful than you ever imagined possible. Trust the process. Trust your soul. Trust that there's a higher wisdom guiding you, even when you can't see the complete path. Your transformation is sacred, your pain is fertile, and your rebirth is inevitable. When you look back in a few years, you'll see this period of your life as the most important moment of your existence. Not for what you achieved externally, but for who you became internally. You'll see that all the pain was worth it because it led you home to your true self. And when you're on the other side, when you've integrated this transformation into your daily life, you'll have a beautiful responsibility to be a living example that it's possible to be reborn, that it's possible to live authentically, that it's possible to find inner peace in the midst of external chaos. Before you finish watching this video, I want to invite you to become part of this community of souls that are awakening. Subscribe to this channel if these topics resonate deeply with you. Give it a like if something I shared touched your heart. And most importantly, share in the comments your own experience with this process. Your story can be the light another soul needs to know it's not alone in its darkness. Your vulnerability can be the bridge that connects someone else to their own healing. Together, we can create a space where spiritual awakening is honored, understood, and supported. Remember, your weary soul doesn't need more stimulation. It needs recognition, compassion, and sacred time to transform. Give it what it needs and watch how it flourishes in ways you never believed possible. Your rebirth is already on its way. You just need to have the patience and faith to allow it to unfold in its perfect timing.